The Nevada desert stretched endlessly under the scorching sun of 2032, its barren landscape concealing secrets that would soon shake the very foundations of human understanding. Deep beneath the surface, in a classified military installation known only as Site Delta 7, Dr. Alice Munro stood before a holographic display showing gravitational anomalies that defied every law of physics she had spent her career defending. Dr. Munro had built her reputation as a geologist by systematically debunking pseudoscientific theories, the hollow earth theory chief among them. Now confronted with undeniable evidence of massive underground cavities, creating impossible gravitational signatures, she felt the ground beneath her own beliefs beginning to crack. "The readings are consistent across all our sensors," reported her research partner Tom Reyes, a mining engineer whose calloused hands spoke of years spent in the Earth's depths. "Whatever's down there, it's big enough to house a small city." The expedition team had been hastily assembled by Colonel Jack Hayes, a decorated military officer whose ambitions extended far beyond his current rank. Hayes viewed this anomaly not as a scientific curiosity, but as a potential strategic asset for American dominance. The team included Dr. Mei Ling, a brilliant microbiologist specializing in extremophile organisms, and Kaya Red Eagle, a Navajo guide, whose knowledge of local legends had proven invaluable to the preliminary investigation. "My grandmother always spoke of the second layer of Earth," Kaya had shared during their initial briefing, her weathered face solemn. "She said our ancestors knew of the people who lived between the fire and the sky." The inciting incident came 3 days into their surface surveys. While examining a newly formed sinkhole, a perfect circle 30 meters in diameter that had appeared overnight, the team's ground-penetrating radar revealed something impossible, a tunnel system extending far beyond their equipment's maximum range. The walls of the tunnel showed signs of artificial construction with smooth surfaces that reflected their searchlights in ways that suggested advanced engineering. Colonel Hayes's voice cut through the desert air with military precision. "Pack for a 2-week underground mission. We're going in at 0600 tomorrow. This is classified beyond top secret. No one speaks of this to anyone." Dr. Munro felt a familiar thrill mixed with apprehension. This was either the discovery of the century or a career-ending mistake. As she prepared her geological instruments, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to cross a threshold from which there would be no return. The descent began before dawn. Their equipment, transported by military helicopters under cover of darkness, included advanced spelunking gear communication systems and enough supplies to sustain a small army. As they rappelled into the sinkhole, the air grew noticeably warmer, carrying with it the faint scent of minerals and something else, something organic and alive. "Temperatures rising faster than it should," Tom observed, checking his instruments. "We're only 50 meters down, but it's already 20 degrees warmer than surface." The tunnel walls revealed themselves to be composed of a material none of them could identify. Smooth as glass, yet harder than granite, with veins of what appeared to be metallic ore running through them like frozen lightning. Dr. Ling collected samples at every opportunity, her excitement barely contained. "These formations, they're not natural," she announced, after examining a particularly intricate pattern. "Look at these striations. They're too regular, too purposeful." As they descended deeper, the tunnel opened into a vast cavern system that defied comprehension. Bioluminescent formations painted the walls in ethereal blues and greens, while underground rivers flowed with water so pure it seemed to glow. The team's headlamps revealed corridors branching off in multiple directions, each carved with the same impossible precision. It was Dr. Munro who first noticed the heat signatures on their thermal imaging equipment. "We're not alone down here," she whispered, pointing to the readings. "These aren't random heat sources. They're moving in patterns." The first sign of the ancient civilization appeared 5 days into their underground journey. Carved into the wall of a particularly large chamber were symbols that seemed to writhe and shift in their flashlight beams. But it was Tom who made the discovery that would change everything. "There's something behind this wall," he said, running his hands over what appeared to be solid rock. "The acoustic properties are all wrong. It's hollow." Using carefully placed charges, they opened a passage into what could only be described as an underground temple. Pyramid-like structures rose from the cavern floor, their surfaces covered in hieroglyphs that told a story spanning millennia. The carvings depicted humans from the surface world descending into the earth, meeting tall, elegant beings who radiated light from their hands. "My God!" Dr. Monroe breathed, tracing one of the carvings with trembling fingers. "These show contact between surface dwellers and whoever built this place. And look at the date markers. This civilization has been here for thousands of years." Colonel Hayes's priorities remained firmly fixed on the strategic implications. What kind of weapons technology are we looking at? Any signs of mineral wealth, uranium, rare earth elements? It was Kaya who provided the first real insight into what they had discovered. Studying the symbols with an expression of growing recognition, she spoke in hushed tones. "These aren't just carvings. They're eerily similar to some of our oldest pictographs. The ones our elders say were drawn by the Skywalkers, beings who came from the hollow places beneath the earth." The confrontation came without warning on their 8th day underground. The team had been setting up camp in a large chamber when figures emerged from the shadows. Tall, graceful beings wearing armor that seemed to be made of the same metallic ore they had seen in the tunnel walls. Their skin had a luminescent quality, and their eyes held intelligence that spanned generations. Anga R. Nethkala. One of them spoke, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in their bones. Colonel Hayes immediately reached for his sidearm, but Dr. Monroe stepped forward, her hands raised in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "We come in peace. We are explorers, seeking knowledge." The leader of the beings, distinguished by more elaborate armor and symbols that glowed with their own light, studied them with eyes that seemed to look right through them. When he spoke again, it was in accented but clear English. "Surface dwellers, you have returned to the sacred places. Why do you bring weapons of destruction to the realm of Angar?" What followed was a tense standoff that would determine the fate of two civilizations. The Angar, as they called themselves, had been guardians of the underground realm for over 3,000 years. They had once maintained contact with the surface world, but had retreated deeper into the earth as humanity grew more aggressive and destructive. Dr. Monroe found herself thrust into the role of ambassador, desperately trying to prevent Colonel Hayes from escalating the situation into violence. The Angar possessed technology that made their weapons seem primitive by comparison. Energy shields that deflected bullets, devices that could alter the very structure of matter, and a deep understanding of geothermal energy that they had learned to harness over millennia. "We have watched your wars," the Angar leader, who identified himself as Kethvar, explained. "We have seen your bombs that split the atom and poisoned the earth. We withdrew because we knew that contact would only bring destruction to both our peoples." The crisis reached its peak when Colonel Hayes, frustrated by what he saw as strategic inaction, attempted to activate a tracking beacon that would summon military reinforcements. In the ensuing confrontation, Angar warriors moved to defend their realm, while the expedition team found themselves caught in the middle. It was Dr. Monroe who made the choice that would resonate through history. Stepping between the opposing forces as energy weapons charged and conventional guns were raised, she made a decision that transcended her scientific training. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice echoing through the chamber. "We stand on the threshold of the greatest discovery in human history, and you want to destroy it for politics and power." Her words seemed to pierce the tension like a blade. Colonel Hayes' finger on the trigger of his weapon hesitated. The Angar warriors paused, their leader raising a hand in a gesture that clearly meant to hold their fire. In that moment of stillness, Dr. Monroe continued, "We came here seeking knowledge. Some of us came seeking power. But what we've found is so much more important than either. We've found proof that civilization can flourish in ways we never imagined. Are we going to destroy that because of fear? Kethavar stepped forward, his luminescent eyes fixed on Dr. Monroe. You speak of knowledge, surface dweller. But knowledge without wisdom is destruction. Your people have proven this repeatedly. Then, teach us. Dr. Monroe replied her scientist's curiosity, overcoming her fear. Help us become worthy of the knowledge we seek. The tension gradually ebbed as communication continued. The Anga-R agreed to share portions of their history, revealing that they had once been surface dwellers themselves, driven underground by massive climatic changes millennia ago. Over generations, they had adapted to their environment, developing technology that worked in harmony with the Earth's natural processes, rather than exploiting them. They showed the expedition their city, a marvel of engineering that seemed to grow from the living rock itself. Streets glowed with captured geothermal light, buildings breathed with the Earth's natural rhythms, and the air itself seemed cleaner and more vital than anything on the surface. Colonel Hayes, faced with wonders beyond military exploitation, found his worldview fundamentally challenged. The Anga-R possessed defenses that made surface weapons obsolete, but more importantly, they possessed something his strategic training had never prepared him for: a completely different understanding of power itself. Your weapons, Kethavar explained during one of their cultural exchanges, are designed to destroy. Ours are designed to protect and sustain. This is why we cannot share our technology freely with your people. In your hands, our tools of life would become instruments of death. Dr. Ling's biological studies revealed that the Anga-R had evolved in ways that enhanced their connection to their environment. Their luminescent skin allowed them to photosynthesize energy from the bioluminescent plants they cultivated, and their extended lifespans had given them a perspective on time that made them natural conservators and planners. As the days passed, Dr. Monroe found herself changing in ways she hadn't expected. Her scientific skepticism remained, but it was tempered by a growing appreciation for knowledge systems that didn't fit neatly into conventional academic categories. The Anga-R's understanding of earth sciences was profound, but it was integrated with philosophy, art, and what they called stone speaking, an ability to sense and communicate with the living systems of the planet. Tom, ever the practical engineer, was fascinated by their construction techniques. They don't build on the rock, he marveled after watching Anga-R workers expand a chamber. They convince the rock to reshape itself. It's like they're speaking to the stone. Kaya found perhaps the deepest connection with the Anga-R, recognizing in their culture echoes of traditions her own people had preserved in legend and song. The elders were right, she told Dr. Monroe one evening as they sat beside an underground lake that sparkled with natural phosphorescence. The earth is alive and we've forgotten how to listen to it. The most profound revelation came when Kethavar shared their historical records. Vast libraries carved in stone that preserved not just the history of the Anga-R, but observations of surface civilization spanning thousands of years. They had watched the rise and fall of empires, had seen the invention of agriculture, the Industrial Revolution, and most recently, the nuclear age. We have sent envoys to your surface at times of great crisis, Kethavar revealed. During your great wars, some of our people walked among you, trying to guide your leaders toward paths of greater wisdom. But your people's capacity for destruction grew faster than your wisdom. Colonel Hayes, forced to confront the limitations of his military perspective, underwent perhaps the most dramatic transformation. The Anga-R's security did not rely on weapons or walls, but on harmony with their environment and a sophisticated understanding of sustainable resource management. They had achieved something his training had told him was impossible: perfect security through perfect integration with their surroundings. They're not pacifists, he confided to Dr. Monroe after a demonstration of Anga-R defensive capabilities. There's something beyond our military framework entirely. They've evolved past the need for conquest. As their time with the Anga-R drew to a close, the expedition members faced a choice that would define the rest of their lives. The underground civilization had offered to share selected knowledge, principles of sustainable energy, medical techniques that could revolutionize surface medicine, and agricultural methods that could end food scarcity. But this knowledge came with conditions. Your people must prove they can use such gifts without destroying themselves or others, Kethvar explained. We have learned from our observations that giving powerful tools to immature civilizations only hastens their destruction. Dr. Monroe found herself appointed as the primary liaison between the two worlds. The Anga-R had specifically requested her recognizing in her a mind that could bridge the gap between scientific rigor and openness to new paradigms. The return journey to the surface was bittersweet. Each step away from the Anga-R city felt like leaving a piece of themselves behind. They carried with them carefully selected samples, detailed notes, and most importantly, a mandate to prepare surface civilization for eventual contact. Colonel Hayes's final report to his superiors was unlike anything in military history. Instead of recommending immediate exploitation of the discovery, he advocated for a gradual, careful approach that prioritized relationship building over resource extraction. The strategic implications are beyond anything we've previously encountered, his report concluded. But the greater strategic value lies not in what we can take from them, but in what we can learn from them. They represent a model of civilization that has achieved sustainable prosperity for millennia. The real question is not how we can exploit this discovery, but how we can evolve to deserve partnership with them. Dr. Monroe's scientific publications were carefully edited to exclude specific details about the location and nature of the Anga-R, while sharing revolutionary insights about underground ecosystems and geological formations. She became a leading advocate for sustainable technology development and founded an institute dedicated to what she called harmony engineering, technology designed to work with natural systems rather than against them. Tom left the mining industry entirely dedicating himself to developing construction techniques based on Anga-R principles. His new company specialized in buildings that enhanced, rather than disrupted their environment structures, that seemed to grow from the landscape itself rather than imposing upon it. Dr. Ling's research into Anga-R biology led to breakthroughs in regenerative medicine and sustainable biotechnology. While she couldn't reveal the source of her insights, her work revolutionized understanding of symbiotic relationships between organisms and their environments. Kaya became a bridge between traditional knowledge and modern science, working to preserve and interpret indigenous wisdom about Earth systems. She founded a school that taught children to see the world as a living system, rather than a collection of resources to be exploited. The sinkhole in Nevada was officially sealed, and the site reclassified. But those who had made the journey knew that the seal was symbolic rather than practical. The Anga-R could open passages whenever they chose. The real barrier was not physical, but philosophical. Surface civilization's readiness to embrace a fundamentally different relationship with their planet. Years passed and the expedition members remained connected by bonds forged in the depths of the Earth. They met regularly, sharing progress and challenges as they worked to prepare the surface world for eventual open contact with the Anga-R. Each carried within them the memory of that luminous underground city, a vision of what human civilization could become. Dr. Monroe often returned to the sealed site, standing at the edge of the desert where the sinkhole had been. Though no visible trace remained, she knew that deep below, the Anga-R continued their patient guardianship of the Earth's hidden places. And sometimes, on clear nights when the stars seemed particularly bright, she thought she could feel the warmth rising from the depths, a subtle reminder that the Earth itself was alive, and that humanity's greatest discoveries lay not in conquering nature, but in learning to live as part of its larger story. The legacy of the expedition lived on in the work of its members, in the technologies they developed, and in the slowly changing consciousness of a surface world, beginning to understand that its survival depended not on domination, but on harmony. The Anga-R watched and waited, ready to emerge fully into the light when humanity proved itself worthy of the wisdom held in the Earth's secret places. and in the sealed archives of several governments, carefully preserved reports hinted at truths too profound for immediate public consumption. Evidence that the hollow earth theory had been proven true, and that the greatest adventure in human history was still yet to come. The fire from the depths continued to burn, a beacon of hope for a civilization, learning to see itself not as masters of the earth, but as children in the care of teachers whose wisdom spanned millennia. Those who had walked in the luminous halls of Angaar carried with them a transformed understanding of what it meant to be human. They had seen proof that intelligence could evolve beyond the need for conflict, that technology could enhance rather than diminish the natural world, and that the greatest discoveries often lay not in the distant stars, but in the unexplored depths of the world beneath their feet. The story of their descent into the earth and return to the surface became for them a template for the journey all humanity must eventually make. A descent into deeper wisdom, a confrontation with their own limitations, and an emergence into a new understanding of their place in the vast interconnected web of life that sustained all things. As Dr. Monroe wrote in her private journal on the 5th anniversary of the expedition, "We descended into the earth as explorers seeking knowledge. We emerged as students who had been given a glimpse of what we might become. The hollow earth we discovered was not an empty space to be filled with our ambitions, but a full and vital world that could teach us how to make our own world whole again." The truth remained hidden, but its influence spread like underground water, nourishing new growth wherever it touched. And those who knew the secret worked tirelessly to prepare the surface world for the day when the barriers between above and below would dissolve, and humanity would take its place as partners with the patient guardians of the deep earth. In the end, the expedition to the hollow earth had proven more than just a theory. It had proven that the universe was far stranger and more wonderful than any surface dweller had imagined, and that the greatest adventures waited not in the conquest of new frontiers, but in the wisdom to recognize that some frontiers were not meant to be conquered, but learned from, respected, and ultimately joined. The fire from the depths continued to burn, a reminder that beneath the surface of things lay depths of possibility, as yet unimagined, waiting for humanity to grow wise enough to embrace them. And somewhere deep beneath the Nevada desert and halls, lit by living stone and waters that sang with ancient memories, the Angaar maintained their patient vigil, guardians of secrets that could transform the world when the time was right, when the surface children had learned to walk softly enough to deserve the treasures of the deep earth. The expedition had ended, but its true journey was just beginning. A journey not measured in miles or depths, but in the transformation of consciousness that would eventually unite two worlds in a partnership that honored both the wisdom of the depths and the aspiration of those who lived beneath the open sky.